I'm Bri.
I'm Jacqueline.
And we're creating a community of women leaders who are becoming their most confident, creative, and purposeful selves.
Long ago, we realized that society's playbook didn't work for us. So we created the Modern Woman Show, where we go against the grain, live expansive lives, and create our own playbook.
So come on, be different with us.
Okay, awesome. Hi, welcome back to the Modern Woman Show. And we are talking about manifestation today.
Yeah, I'm so ready for this episode. I can't even tell you.
I know, manifestation, I feel like is so buzzwordy and has a lot of different connotations. And honestly, the way that I think about it, and I think the way we think about it at the Modern Woman, is it's really about creation and creativity. This is what I mean by creativity. I mean manifestation, making things happen in your life.
Yes, 100%. When were you introduced to manifestation? Because you're right, like it is a buzzword. We hear it a lot now. It kind of has this like sunshine and daisies like vibe around it. But like, how was it initially introduced to you? How did you first learn about it?
Yeah, I remember when I was creating not my first business, but my first business recently, which was back in 2016, 17.
Yeah.
And I was researching different things and I ran across it. And so then I started experimenting with it like a lot of people do, and like making lists and trying to figure out what worked, and was just astonished when things would come true off my list. Like I'd be like, in a year, I want to, and like I wrote out a couple of things. And when they happened, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? But I didn't really know what I was doing until probably like 2 or 3 years later. I was just playing around and, I don't know, not really knowing what I was doing, which is fine. I don't know if we'll ever know what we're truly doing, but it kind of feels like now we know what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, now we're just more intentional about it, I think. Like for me, I was first introduced to manifestation back in late 2020, early 2022, I think. I was working with my business coach, Montrese Ransom, who is phenomenal, by the way. And I just worked with her for a semester. And for the first time ever, she talked about manifestation in a way that I had never heard before. And she really talked about it as a tool and a resource. And it was then that I started getting more into meditating, journaling, getting into more of an intentional practice of manifesting. And because initially it was just kind of like felt very fun loving and like, ooh, voodoo-y kind of, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like magical.
Like you can say something and it happens.
Oh yeah. And you're just like, what? Tell me more. But then I was like, the way she talked to me about it and the way she broke it down and made it very practical lifestyle choice was really eye-opening for me. And I realized that whether we intentionally do it or not, we manifest. Like everyone manifests. And at that time is when I came up with an acronym, DBAR, basically meaning desire.
Sounds like a mean name.
Yeah, I know, like right?
Sounds
D-bar.
like a mean name for you. Dimit, you little D-bar.
You little D-bar, I know. But essentially, it helped me remember and be more intentional when I'm thinking about creating my life. Desire is what it starts with. I think so often when we talk about manifestation, a lot of people talk about it as wants. Like, this is what I want, and then it'll happen. Like, or I'll write it down and then it'll happen. But I think it's so much more than that. But that's what it starts with. It starts with your desire, which is D, and then your belief. You have to believe that it's possible. You have to believe that it's true. You have to feel it truly in your life. And then action, and then you get the result, right? You have to meet the belief with your actions. You can't just say, this is something that I want, and then it's going to come true. You have to step up to the plate, right? And apply that to your life. And then that's when you start seeing results.
You make it sound so easy.
I know, it is. You can do it too with this 4-step program.
Right, exactly. No, I love your acronym. And a couple things that I want to share that I've learned along the way too. And I mean, it's the same process. But the steps that you just outlined are really, really important as to how you go about them.
Sure.
It's always about the how, not always about the what. And we all know that. We can be, intending for something and really believing that it can happen for us and taking small actions that are seemingly aligned, but then our manifestation like hits us in the side of the head out of nowhere. We're like, wait, how did our actions align us to that again? Because it seems like it just happened out of the blue. So a couple of things that I want to share when it comes to your D bar. I feel like I'm saying a naughty word.
I know, right? It kind of does sound a little like rough, but I love
Bar.
it.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go create some stuff. Come on, D bar. Okay. So when I think about desire, like you think about want, and recently have been turned on to how important the use of language is.
Mm,
And the act of wanting something actually creates a lack feeling, a feeling of lack in a lot of people. And language is different for everybody, but want typically means I don't have it, therefore I want it. So it's lacking. And whenever you believe that you are lacking something, then you're putting your energy into the lack portion of it versus the having it. And so what the universe or what your life shows you back is, okay, we're not going to give you that because you're lacking it. And you believe that you lack it. You're going to continue lacking it. Like wanting equals lacking. So just like you said, desire, exactly. It's really about what what am I trying to embrace more of? What am I trying to bring in more of? And so language is really important. And so that I bring that point up. The book that I read about language that turned me on to that was called, I want to say it's called The Conscious Language. I'll look it up and I can link it.
yeah.
I'm trying to find it across the room, but I can't read that far. Oh, 30s. Anyway, I'm like, oh, my eyes, I think used to work better. Anyway, so that's desire. But I also think desire for you, one of your strengths, Bri, is knowing what you want. And I know that because I know your human design. And also, you just know what you want, but not everybody knows what they want. When I do career coaching or work on life coaching with people, the first thing I do is a clarity exercise. And so getting really, really clear, even before knowing what you want, sometimes needs to happen for
Mhm.
us, you know, people out there who don't have knowing what we want as a strength. I'm always like, wait, what? What do I want again? So what I always recommend is, basically making a list of things that you love in your life or want to invite more of in your life and things that you don't love. And that will help you figure out what it is that you want to move into and what you want to move away from. So D could equal desire and clarity if you don't know what you want.
Mm.
Um, so those were just a couple of things. Any other thoughts? Because I know I've been chatting your ear off.
No, I love that. I think I love how you took it a step further before you even start to think about manifesting, because that's true. I think oftentimes too, in relation to manifesting is self-awareness, which was our last episode. They coincide so well actually, because that's, I feel like, kind of the first step before you can be intentional or be mindful of what you desire and what you want to create and how you want to show up in the world. You have to be really self-aware and do a lot of healing and understand what lights you up and be able to recognize your triggers and recognize things that are meant for you. And so I love that, the clarity component, and I think you're 100% right. And so
Yeah, it's not uncommon for people, especially anybody in a career change, like a industry change. It's not uncommon for for me to ask them, what lights you up? And they're like, I have no idea. And that's
yeah.
totally normal.
Yep.
And it's okay to be in that spot. But doing that exercise really does help. And experimenting, of course, and trying things. But
Yes, that's
um
exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, and
trying things.
experimenting. Yeah, I feel like you're an expert at experimenting, and
Well, we are, because that's what we've been doing this whole season.
yeah. Well, and it's a lifetime process. It's like, yeah, you're always gonna shift, you're gonna grow, and then your desires are gonna change. And that's why I think, you mentioned earlier, it sounds so simple, but it really is to me now. It feels very fluid and very natural for me to apply this to my life because it's even how I make decisions daily. So
Yeah, absolutely. And even when it comes to desiring or putting, even writing on the list, something that you want to bring in more into your life, um, that it leads then into intention. So first you even know that you desire it, and then you intend to bring in more of it or
Mm,
achieve more of it or go get it, whatever it is. The intention is this, I feel like a small little word that we kind of throw around and we think, oh, my intention is, and we just say it. But
mhm.
that's actually a huge step
Yeah.
because it's what happens right before you take an action.
Mhm.
And it actually is the assist in bringing the action closer to you.
Completely.
So
Well, and
even if
I think it's one of the most important ingredients in making sure that your actions are in alignment with
Mhm,
you, because I
mhm,
feel like actions can come all the time. You can
right,
make an action, but it's not always aligned with you if you don't have intention.
100%. And actually, we detail that very well, I think, in the confidence course that we created. The confidence course is really just a blueprint to creating your life.
Mhm. In your
So
own way. Like, it's a framework that
Mhm.
literally allows you to, like, create it yourself though, which is my favorite part.
I know. So confidence is a byproduct, but really what you get is the life, the blueprint to creating the life that you want and love and dream about. Because we're all creating anyway, like you mentioned. So it's like you might as well create with purpose and you might as well create in a way that is very unique and tailored to you. And that's what the
Totally.
confidence course is. Honestly, we should probably change the name because anyway.
I know, but it's
Like
not just about confidence. I think, like, we just thought that it would give people more confidence
it
because
does.
it does, because it gives you so much choice and, like, guidance based on what you want. So it's just like, you do
We
it
should
for
call it
yourself.
the live life your way. Don't let people tell you what to do. No.
Yes. Yes. The
That's
my
what
rules
I
are
would
the
buy
best
that.
rules. Yeah. All of the above, all the above. But and I know I've talked about this too on the podcast before. Maybe it was in season 1, but also with manifestation to me, and thinking about desire and thinking about our thoughts just in general, we on average have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of them are repetitive. And so
Mhm.
that is what was like, that was such a pivotal statistic that I learned in school, that I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, wow, it is really important," like you were mentioning about intention, to ensure that then when we are waking up in the morning, those 50 to 60 thoughts that we have a day that we start with are going to repeat in our minds throughout the day. So I want to be very intentional with what that energy, what those thoughts, what I'm consuming in the morning, to ensure that I'm setting myself up for success. So
So
I just
good.
wanted to throw that in there when we were talking about intention, because I feel like that's really pivotal and that was really eye opening for me.
And that statistic is why vision boards work. It's why affirmations work.
Yes.
It's why any kind of rewiring or subconscious programming or NLP, anything works
Yes.
because of that.
100%.
So that kind of that brings us honestly into the next stage. We were talking about intention um, and taking action. And the action is not only aligned action, but it's also how we take the action, the energy behind the action. Because if we know that we need to go do something in order to make something happen, like save money, right?
Yep.
And that's just really example that I pulled out of the air. But if we are hating our life while doing that, it's not going to work.
Right.
If
Right.
we're just like crying, like no, like
Right.
let's do it in a way that is lighting us up and is we truly can get behind and we truly believe in.
Mhm.
Because the belief that one, our manifestation can come true, or what we're trying to create or bring in can come true, that belief and the belief in us taking the steps to get there, like those have to be aligned. Like we have to believe that it's possible or that we can do it. And that's where the confidence comes in. Like we have to believe in it.
Mhm. Well,
That's
and I
like,
think too that's why it's so important that desire and belief have to come first
right.
before we do the action, because if it's not something that we even really want, that's going to shift the motivation to show up. And if we don't believe that it's even possible, that's also gonna it like the universe knows that. Like that is the energy we're going to give out. Like you cannot fake it. You cannot write it down and say, I want $1 million. I want to become a millionaire. And then just say, okay, do the work. Like you have to believe like, okay, well, how do I want to become a millionaire? What does that look like for me? What does that feel like for me? What is financial freedom to me? And then your actions are going to show up in that way. And so, yeah, so crucial, so crucial.
So good. I always talk about books, and this book I talked about in our money episode, but Think and Grow Rich
Mhm.
by Napoleon Hill. Oh my gosh, I just love how passionate and riled up he gets about believing that it's possible. Like this one thing is possible, and he just keeps talking about it over and over and over again. And it's not just about money, right? It's about creating absolutely anything in your life. So that the belief part also seems small, but even if you tell yourself that you believe it and you have convinced yourself that you believe in it, or yourself and taking the actions or having the ability to make it happen, you could still be fooling yourself and not know it. So sometimes there's some more, subconscious things that come up, which is why
Absolutely.
we love journaling. And I know we talked about that in the self-awareness episode, but if there's any issue with belief, usually journaling is what I turn to.
Yeah.
Um, and then lastly, we talked about, results, it happening. And sometimes it happens all at once, right? You like want something and then it's like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, here it comes. Like my example of, I really desired that red coat, and
Oh, yes.
I was like, I'm going to find this red coat.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find it for the price that I wanted. And one day I walked into this like designer resale shop, and there it was in my size, perfect condition, on point budget wise. And it was like all of a sudden my manifestation showed up, and I was so excited. I took it home. I still have it. So that's like, it's, it was a pretty fun, easy, simple example, but I
Yeah.
love playing with stuff like that. So that's evidence. That's proof that what I'm doing is working. But when you are thinking about bringing something bigger into your life or creating something bigger, like a house or a job, you, I think one thing that's really encouraging is to look for proof that what you're doing is working. So
Mhm.
sometimes it could be, if you're trying to find a job and you get an interview with this like awesome company, but you don't end up getting the job, right? Well, that's evidence that what you're doing is working, because maybe the thing isn't here, but a thing came in a similar fashion.
Yes,
So
I love
collecting
that.
proof only makes you, one, believe in it more, believe in yourself more, and has like more faith that you know that it's coming. Um, and sometimes I like to ask for signs. Yeah, that's the part that I'm like, "Ooh."
Yes.
I ask
Oh,
for
I
signs
love
all the time.
yeah, of course. Well, and that's I think you asking yourself like that is you intentionally putting out into the universe that you are searching for that evidence, which is that action, which is showing up. And I think yeah, that's really vital.
So D bar
D-bar.
will have all the words listed
Yes.
so that it's a formula that can be followed. But yeah, I just wanted to share some of the things I've learned about manifestation along the way. And again, we poured our heart and soul into the confidence course, which really is a creation and manifestation course. But those are how we create in our lives. And speaking of, I would love, Bri, for you to highlight something that you created recently in your life. And it's a really cool story because a lot of big things shifted in a really short period of time. And so I was wondering if you'd share it with us.
Yeah, of course. So some of you may have already seen or heard. Jordan and I have sold our home and are moving into a Ram Pro Master 3500, 159 extended to travel the country. And we are moving out July 15th. So we have like, we're weeks away. And I think the coolest part of it is that I felt like you were there with me this whole journey because I threw it out to you maybe in December. I was just like, hey,
Mhm.
here, like, I think this idea would be really cool. I just feel like something's inside of me. And like you were talking, for whatever reason, I'm very blessed to have the gift of throughout my life, there's a multitude of things that I really desire. But when it comes to me, I am so passionate about it. And I'm like, this is happening. And so, but like anything else, I'm also not a one woman show. So I am like, I have to get Jordan on board. Like, how am I going to get Jordan on board? So I came to him in January. And so the desire was, I need something different. I love traveling. We've been going through a pandemic for 2.5 years. A lot of things have been canceled. There have been a lot of health issues that have happened personally in my life and in my family and in Jordan's family. And so it just kind of started stirring the question of like, what do I desire? Like, what do I want to do in life because it is so short? And the desire was travel the country and do it in an RV. So I went to Jordan and I said, "Hey, hear me out." And he said, "Yeah, that sounds great, but da 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 da." And we came up with like a list of things like, "Yeah, that's great, but what about my job? Yeah, that's great, but what about this?" And so then I was like talking to you about it and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like he's down, but it seems like so far-fetched." So that's when belief came in was I believe it to be true. I believe it's totally possible. And right now he is in a state of like this is a feasible, practical opportunity in life. So I took his list and I started working through it with him and I said, "Okay, something we would need to figure out is the financials." So we sat down one night and we talked through all the numbers. How much we currently spend now, how much we would be spending, what kind of lifestyle we would want when we are on the road. And then all of a sudden, the belief system for him, since he thinks more practically rather than spontaneously, started becoming true. So then he was like, "Oh my gosh, we really could financially make this work." And then we started putting out of like, okay, now you need a remote job. You need a job that's going to be supportive of you and the work life balance because it is very different lifestyle. And sure enough, I talked to you, you gave some resources. He talked to some friends and an opportunity of a lifetime fell into his lap and he applied for it and he worked his butt off for it and he got it. I just got chills.
I'm not surprised.
He's so proud of himself. I mean, he's amazing. If you know him, you know he is. Yeah. But he just so deserved this opportunity too, which completely helped with his belief system of like, oh my gosh, like like things just keep falling into place. And that goes into the action, right? So it was like the belief of, okay, so we could make this work if we figure out this list of things that I feel like are blocking. And then the action was to show up. Okay, well, what did he have to do? He had to apply, he had to start networking, he had to say, like, these are the things that I would need to work in order to be able to travel the country remotely. And literally 2 months later, our house was sold. Like, we also talked to, like, realtors because we were like, "Okay, we would need to sell our house and use the equity in the home and all these things." And so we showed up.
Your home sold before it went on the market.
It did.
Like,
It
these are some of the crazy things.
it did, yeah.
Yeah.
We literally had a few realtors come by to just say, like, "This is an idea," in February. We were like, "We're thinking about selling our house, but before we do, we really wanna nail down the numbers," and literally a week later, she was like, "Okay, I know we were gonna list in April, but I have somebody already." And it sold in March. And yeah, I mean, and the first person who came in, they loved it. They were here for 8 minutes. I don't know if you're out there listening, but I hope you love this home just as much as we did.
Right.
Um, Thank you for showing up. And yeah, I cannot believe. I think the craziest thing, like you had mentioned, is it really happened in 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, and then you had all that drama around trying to find the van.
Right. Oh, right. So we were in search of what company we were going to use because with our timeline, and now that we have sold our house, we hadn't yet nailed down or the van.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, we talked about how whenever you feel you put out into the universe, like, I'm going to make a big decision in life, it feels like there's all these reasons that are trying to stop you. And I feel like that's part of the process. And maybe it's imposter syndrome. Maybe it's your own brain telling you, like, yeah, but all these things could happen. So trying to hold you back. But that's kind of what happened. We were like, oh my gosh, now we've sold the house, but we don't actually have an RV or van to move into. Like, what are we going to do? And the financial situation that we were particularly in was we could take out one, we wanted, this was our preference was to take out one loan and then use the equity in the house. So like we were okay to take out a loan because we don't really have any car loans or any other loans. So we're like, we'll take one out to put a deposit down, but then we want to use the equity in our house. Well, most van companies that we were talking to, we talked to some in Colorado, some in California, and they were just like, we no, like we would need everything up front. And we're like, oh man, like we just don't really want to do that. Like, so we just kept searching. And all of a sudden, Drifter Vans is the company that we're going with. I saw it on an Instagram on like it because now, right, with the algorithm, it could tell that I was like looking at different vans and stuff on there. So like this Instagram ad popped up and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like it's completely done. That's perfect. We don't need a van build. We'll do one that's completed. And so I clicked on it, I reached out to them. He called me and was like, hey. And I was talking to him about our story and our situation. And he was like, oh, no, that one's not actually done. It's one that we have done, but we just have a van that's being ready to be built. And I was like, oh, well, probably won't work then because we've talked to other companies and this is our timeline. And he was like, no, actually, we'd start building it in April. And we're like, what? And we're like, well, this is our financial situation. He was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, actually, I'm driving through Indiana. Can I just stop by and we can meet in person? And then he came by and we had a glass of wine and we just talked. And I mean, we fell in love with him. He fell in love with us. And I just, like you said, like it was like, it felt like block after block after block. And then it was like, nope, this is it. This was right. Which goes into when we're talking about the whole process of manifestation and the formula of D-bar. I also feel like there's something in there of timing or patience because, or trust, because it's not, even if you do the D-ba part, DBA, like you have the desire, the belief, and you're showing up, it can get exhausting. And so, and maybe that's more of your evidence searching that you need to like find, but because sometimes it doesn't always work out, the results don't always come in your time. But
Yeah, that's amazing. I think the timing has to do with taking action and the intuition part of it and knowing which action to take when and not just plowing through with a bunch of actions. Cause you could have,
sure,
gone out and like found a realtor and be like, list it today. And you
right,
could have gone and like gone with the first van company you met and been like, we're doing all this right now. And then had all that trouble later, you know?
true,
Instead, you're
true.
like, "Oh, that doesn't feel quite right. Let's move on," or "Let's
Yeah,
wait." And patience and trust, I feel like go hand in hand
yeah,
and are a big part of it. But yeah, I love that story, and it all came together. And so now you have sold your house, you're moving out, you know where you're going until the van's ready, and then you're moving into the van.
yep. And we're embarking and just hitting the road August 7th.
Oh my gosh! So you sold your house,
It's
and you're
done.
going
And
out.
like the house is packed up. Like if I show you, like I had to set up my plant and my dream again because like all the shelves were down, and I mean like so much has been packed up, and we've been, yeah, we've been getting ready and downsizing. I mean, going from a full blown home that we love dearly
I know
to
it's so big.
like a bed and tiny home on
You have a
wheels.
shower.
We will, yeah, we'll have a
Okay,
pop up
good.
shower,
Won't be
toilet,
sticky. Okay.
yeah.
So how are you feeling now that that all that's happening and now you're making this huge life change, based on a desire that you had in January?
I think it's so many things. Obviously, the emotions of it feels like going like when you're on a roller coaster and you're going up and you feel like kind of nervous, but you're kind of excited for like the fall, like, but you're feeling all these things. And so you're preparing for this ride of a lifetime. And it's so self assuring. It's really empowering to be able to say that I really applied. I mean, this is huge. This is probably the biggest manifestation that I have intentionally done in my life. You know, all the other ones have been just like small daily practices. This is a big life change and happening so fast, and it's a lot. And then thinking about community and thinking about how we're going to navigate life and what we're going to experience is so exciting and yet so unknown, which is kind of natural for me. I feel like I've always been a spontaneous dream chaser and explorer and adventurer. But uh yeah, it's really liberating to witness it, and I feel very thankful and grateful to be able to witness it. And I just feel very thankful for, I don't know, the level of support too, and everyone involved. I mean, it's not just Jordan. It was like it might have started with me and a crazy idea, but now it's, you know, it's been me, Jordan, Drifter Vans, you all, like Jordan's job. It's been just incredible. And so I just feel overwhelmed with all the goodness, and I'm really excited.
I love that, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And it is really fun to think about, because that, you're right, that's a huge manifestation, something that, I mean, there's no like right time on things like that, but a big move, job changes, that kind of stuff normally takes some time. And I would, for me, when I had a big job change like that, it took me over a year.
Yeah.
And everything happens at the right time. But that was like a lot in a very, very short amount of time, which is why I thought it made a perfect story. And it's just like, one of those extreme ones.
Yeah.
Um, but there, a lot of every manifestation or every creation is, it doesn't have to be that extreme. I mean, I'm like, I want a house that Bri just left, or Bri is like leaving. Like I want a house for my kids, right, with a pool. That's not a normal, but that's my desire manifestation. But one thing I love doing is looking at past versions of my vision board. I do my vision board digitally, and I also use
Mm.
Pinterest. Like I have a separate little secret board just for vision stuff, and
Yeah.
I try to look at it every day, whether it's in the morning or at night. And I love looking at past versions of it because I'll just like update it every once in a while. And I showed you my most recent version, and I was like, oh yeah, I've already actually created most of that, which is really fun
It was so inspiring
to look
because
at.
it was cool to like see that that was what you wanted, and I get to see that. Like you're like that is your life.
Yeah, I love the vision part of it, and I also love the written part of it too, which we've talked in last episode. We talked about the podcast that I created for myself. That basically I listen to my vision for myself every morning, and that does help with. It's basically like an affirmation, but also a creation tool, and a lot of that stuff has come true. And I call it the manifesto, but I think it's really powerful to write out where you see your life in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, however far your eyes and mind and heart can look out. I'm not as far in the future, I'm more closer. But the manifesto, I think, is so powerful. And we're all going somewhere anyway. So I
Right.
think it's just makes sense for me to intentionally put something out there, put some desires out there. And of course they change along the way. That's the point.
Right.
Um, so we created the manifesto tool on the Modern Woman so that you can do it too for free. It's basically you're writing what you want your future to look like in different elements. There's some questions to answer, but really it just talks about who I want to be in 5 years and what I want my life to look like. So I know we talked a lot about manifestation and creation and creativity, and some of it might sound so like, wait, what is going on? So I would just suggest, listen to this episode again. No, I'm just kidding, but seriously, or getting into the manifesto, it's called the confidence course, but really it's a blueprint to create your life your way. Any other tools that you would recommend, Bri?
I don't know. I feel like journaling and meditation have been really crucial for me. I feel like you said, intention is vital. Uh, we manifest whether we're doing it intentionally or unconsciously, and I would prefer to do it intentionally.
Yep.
So I highly recommend taking the time to really be intentional, which is why I love the manifesto. I feel like that's a great free resource that so many have used that has been really beneficial in being intentional with what you want. It's hard sometimes to make decisions with all the influence and external influences and experiences. And so I think that would be my one tool, is whatever that looks like for you, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's turning off your phone or not being on social media for the day and just sitting with your thoughts and letting yourself come up with those desires and then showing up for them.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for being here, listening to our stories. Bri's experiment.
Yeah. Amazing experiment. And
amazing experiment.
We love you always. So much love to you, and keep being different.